The broadcast is now live. I always love when it says the broadcast is now live. So this is, folks, if you're wondering what I'm doing right now, this is the classic. I am stalling for time for all those people who are joining us because they just got notified, or maybe there's a buffer in the live feed that, the first 30 seconds is cut off. You never know. You never know. And what you end up seeing is people like staring at the screen like this, like they're really intent and they don't know what's going on. So this is me stalling. But while I'm stalling, let's have some fun. My name is Darryl. I am the Chief Marketing Officer with Agorapulse. We are coming at you live on the Social Pulse community. Thanks for joining us today. I have got an amazing, I'm so pumped to have this guest today, Lisa Sharapata. Lisa, how you doing today?
Good. I'm doing good. Excited to be here.
So I got to ask you this question because I'm getting this sensation from you right now that you probably just ran from a meeting and are jumping into this one, and you're a little stressed out. Am I right? Am I wrong? Because that's exactly me.
You nailed it. A budget meeting, actually.
Budget meetings, they're the best. I love budget meetings. Give me more of those. Pull my teeth out. All right. So
yes, I'm pulling my head out of the spreadsheets and into a live chat with you.
Just like that. And ironically, it's a live chat about performance marketing, which always goes back to budgets. So Lisa, for the folks at home, let's have some fun. Can you give us a little bit of a heads up of what it is you do, who you're with, etc.?
Yeah. So I'm the Chief Marketing Officer with a company called the Arbinger Insitute. And I've been here almost 6 months now. So time is flying. But we are leadership development and cultural transformation company, and working on really getting all the things stood up. They've been around for almost 40 years, but it's been mostly books and workshops and public courses. So we're working on scaling.
And what would the website be if I wanted to go check out more? Multitask while I'm listening to you.
It is arbinger.com. So just arbinger.com.
All right. So folks,
but I'm redoing it. I just want to.
Yes, that's right. Don't judge me on the website. I inherited. Lisa has been here 6 months. I understand that. I totally get it. Okay, so folks, we're going to have some fun today. So let me set the stage. Today's conversation is around performance marketing. So what is performance marketing and why are we talking about that and why do you care? So it's an interesting conversation. It's probably more prolific in consumer packaged goods companies where they focus on brand and building a brand than it is maybe on, say, B2B or some B2C. But it's really interesting. And the whole conversation was sparked by an article that we saw in, of all places, the Wall Street Journal. So indulge me. I'll set the stage and then I'll tell you why Lisa is here specifically. All right. So here's the stage. The article is this. It's more companies are hiring chief marketing officers with performance marketing backgrounds. And then the subtext here is senior marketers with limited experience in data analytics may struggle to get top jobs in coming years. And you notice, as I was saying, I don't know if you noticed that. While I was saying that, Lisa started to smile. I don't know if you caught that. The whole idea of data analytics as she came from a budgeting conversation, which would have had no conversation around data or analytics at all. Now, I'm going to set the stage here. This is the first paragraph or so from the article, and then we'll stop with the article, and Lisa and I get no live conversation because I think it does a great job setting the stage. Performance marketing campaigns push consumers to take a specific action, such as clicking a link or providing an email address, whereas brand marketing aims to increase awareness of a company and shape perceptions of that business. So you can see why I talked about CPG. By recording exactly how many people take a desired action, these campaigns can be more directly tied to sales at a time when many CMOs are expected to do more with less. And the article goes on, but if I do the too long, didn't read aspect of it, what it's saying is that many CMOs for the first time in their life are actually going to have to be accountable for driving revenue, measurable, provable, attributable revenue, and they cannot survive just on increasing brand awareness. So why is Lisa here? Well, Lisa's a chief marketing officer. She's been a chief marketing officer multiple times. When I have talked to Lisa, when I have looked at some of her content, when I have reviewed with her some of her board presentations, all I see is data after data after data after data. She is the most number-centric CMO I think I've ever met. I've met one or two. So this is why Lisa's here. Now, will Lisa have all the answers? Maybe not. Will I have all the answers? Maybe not. We're going to spark a conversation today. So, Lisa, did I set the stage? Are you feeling intimidated? Do you feel like you have to perform? Just kind of curious.
You know, I do. I mean, but I always feel like I have to perform, so it's okay. No
well, the good news is
pressure.
I'm not a board. I'm not a board that you're presenting to today, so that's kind of cool. All right. So when I read that to you, I mean, to ask you candidly, what was going through your head immediately as you were listening to that?
You know, a few things. First, I started working for a company called Teradata over a decade ago. And when I was there, we were building out a marketing analytics arm. So they're primarily known for data warehousing. But they were taking that, now they're competing with like Snowflake and whatever, but wanted data-driven marketing. And I worked for an amazing CMO named Lisa Arthur. She wrote a book called Data Driven Marketing. And I feel like this was the kind of starting point of this whole concept around being data driven, understanding how these digital components, because you can actually see what's happening and tie things to revenue. And ever since then, I feel like every marketer I've talked to, and most of the conversations I've been in, the pressure's there. It's just so hard to do. Like attribution models, you know, all of those things are always a hot topic of conversation, and you just can't capture everything. I mean, then you're talking about brand, and the irony is I started off in brand. Brand was where my passion lied, and what I quickly realized is that to make strategic decisions, I really need to understand what's working and what's not. I need to understand my audience. I need to have data to help me do a better job. And so, you know, I still feel very passionate. There's an art and a science to marketing, but I always use that data to help me. Just, you know, you can glean so much from it to help you be a better use of the funds you have, make better decisions about what channels you should be in, or even, you know, what words you should use. So yeah, I mean, I'm talking in circles because I just feel like, again, that's art and science. It always weighs on me. And I feel like you have to have that kind of yin and yang to really master it.
All right, so let me set the stage, and we'll just ask a series of questions. Folks, these questions are 100% unscripted. We're going organic here. So as the conversation carries with us, you know, that's the way we're going to go. So if you have any comments you want to throw into the conversation, do not hesitate to chirp in, and we'll pick up on that and go with that. So in no particular order, Lisa, for context for you, we are streaming across multiple channels here today live, but mostly we're streaming across our social media pulse community. And a social media pulse community is a collection, for those who don't know, socialmediapulse.community. And what that is, of course, is a collection of incredible social media experts, social media managers, social media leaders who are tasked with obviously driving awareness, driving brand on social media channels. And of course, they're in this community because they want to learn from each other on how to do it better. Now, what's interesting about that is there's a transition taking place in the social media world where once upon a time it was to measure your impact, it was a combination of, you know, reporting your likes, your follows, your shares, your comments. But now we're getting a top-down push, going back to performance marketing, from their leadership onto them, saying we need to show to the executive, to the board, the exact dollars and cents that our social media efforts are having on our corporate objectives, on our bottom line revenues. And of course, what we're seeing a mixed reaction. Half of the social media experts in this world will say, absolutely, I can do that, but they're not quite sure how to do it. The other half will say, there's no way you can do it. You just can't do it. And I should also say, blurring the line is a lot of social media people saying, I don't want to do it. And the implied statement there is they don't want to be held accountable for numbers. They believe their job is solely branding and awareness creation. And if I'm held accountable for revenues and results and bottom line sales, then it muddies the water and it blurs our role. So that's the audience that we're streaming to right now. If I've got that wrong, anybody, let me know. Go out there and tell me. So that sets the stage that they're getting heat from their CMO, who's probably getting heat from the executive leadership team or the investors to measure more. Are you seeing more requirements to measure not just social media, but all of the campaign spend or all the hiring and prove an ROI? And is this a trend? Is this a momentary reaction to the economy? Or is this a fundamental shift in the modern day marketer's role, the modern day CMO's role?
Yes, definitely. I've been getting pressure. I feel like I've been in B2B tech for a decade before where I am today. So lots of private equity, VC funding, and I feel like the pressure's been there to prove your ROI. I think it's here to stay. I don't think the trend's going to go away. I do think that there's going to be some things that normalize, and I'm already starting to feel like there's becoming more of an understanding around like dark social, for example, and how it's hard to prove that this person told this person this, or they first heard about this brand from this podcast or this thing that is not attributable. But then there's other ways you could try to capture that data. Like you can ask someone, well, how did you actually hear about us, in a form fill? And then you can use that to help you decide what the real attribution should be, not what the last touch or the first touch or trying to piece together a whole story is. So I think that technology will get better and we're going to continue to evolve and be able to glean more about what's happening behind the scenes. It's hard to figure out right now. But I also think that the other trend I'm seeing is a more, I say, instead of a growth at all costs model, it's becoming more of a long-term view on sustainable growth, sustainable go-to-market strategy that can scale. What's scalable and repeatable, and looking at conversion rates and where can you optimize, and saying, okay, we're going to tweak these and do an A/B test. And if this is a clear winner, even if you can't pinpoint some of the exact things that you're spending on, but you're seeing that this model's working from an ROI and conversion rate standpoint, like there's still some acceptance there on the gray area, as long as you have the data to show that, it's working and you're getting revenue from it.
So if I'm a social media rock star, or I'm a marketer who's lived in the world of brand, and I'm getting this heat now to measure, and I am digging in, I am of the opinion that that's not my job. It's all about brand and brand awareness, and that is our goal. And to measure us is to impede us, is to hold us back, is to not understand what we do. How do you respond to that person? So imagine, for example, I'll make it even more personal. Let's say somebody in your team came to you and said, I don't want to be measured. I historically, I wasn't measured. Now you're asking to measure me. I don't want to be measured. I don't think I should be measured. That's my job. How do you respond to that person in a loving, coaching way?
I mean, a few things. First of all, people who join my team, they know they're going to be measured, as you talked about, right? I mean, that's an upfront conversation. How are we measuring success? But the bigger thing for me is brand drives demand. You can see things like when you run campaigns, you may not get a direct hit on ROI immediately, but I can see I've got an increase of volume and traffic on my website, a higher form fills, better conversion rates, increase on my LinkedIn. More people are viewing our page, searching for us, some of those things are leading indicators to me that the brand work that we're doing is working. And eventually those things should be turning into demand. And if they do, and they're not converting, then you've got a problem in somewhere in your experience that you're creating that you need to fix. So again, I think if you're doing brand right, it should turn into revenue. And there are so many, I would say, kind of easy, low-hanging fruit ways to at least get an idea of the impact of that. And I don't think anyone's going to be able to get away with not measuring brand's impact, in the future. If they are today, I'd be surprised.
Right. And when you say, I want to, for clarity for our audience, when you say measuring brand impact, it's not about, likes and comments and shares. You're talking about measuring in the terms of how is this financially impacting the business?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, like I said, I think brand drives demand. So demand gen should be converting into revenue. If you're not converting that into revenue, then something else is broken in your sales and marketing funnel.
And that's what the article here in the Wall Street Journal is alluding to for every single person that's out there doing social media today and wondering, why is this being asked to me? This wasn't asked before. The article is actually speaking about the CMO, not the social media rock star expert, social media manager, who of course would report ultimately to the CMO. And they're saying it's the same problem for the CMO. The CMO now is being demanded that they must prove that they're driving revenue. So even somebody, say you're a head of marketing for a Procter & Gamble brand, and your big product is Tide laundry detergent. All right. It's not enough just to simply say, look, we increase, share of mind by 0.01%. You actually have to show we drove an increase of $10.2 million in revenue because of what we're doing. And that's the thing that's completely different. Now, the other thing the article goes on and talks about, which I know is going to rock a lot of people's lives, is that if you don't have the ability as a skill set, as a marketer, I want to say marketer, that could be a CMO, it could be social media, it could be an event marketer, it could be a pay-per-click person. It's a marketer. If you don't have the ability to actually understand analytics and data, you're going to have difficulty finding a job as you move forward because you're in competition with other people and they do understand data. Would you agree with that? Yes, no? And why do you, and so why do you agree?
So I can look at like content marketing, for example.
Yep.
Content marketer, look way back in the day, you're creating, let's just say, a publication and you're getting subscribers and you're getting a following of your publication. And somehow, you've got to figure out how to that's going to pull through into revenue. Back in the day, people just inherently kind of knew this was working, but they couldn't prove it. Now, when I'm looking at a content marketer who's thinking about getting subscribers to a blog series, getting subscribers to, let's say, a podcast series, getting fans and followers, I want them to be also looking at things like who's coming. Are they an ICP fit? They need to understand the data behind who's going to convert, who are we trying to attract. And I also want them to understand things like SEO. And we'll use for even like intent data signals and see, okay, these are the highest keywords being searched for. That's data, right? That's showing me leadership development is one of the highest words and all the things that we do being searched for. I want then to take that concept of leadership development and have a blog series on leadership development, have a webinar series on leadership development. But then they need to also be able to look at, are we getting good SEO volume and traction off of those articles? Are there other keywords we should be factoring in? And so it's not just a copywriting role anymore. It's not just a creating content for the sake of creating content. It starts to become very strategic part of your marketing mix and how you're approaching what content you should create and how you should create it. And yeah, they can't just throw spaghetti at the wall.
So let's talk about that. All right. Cause I love this. Now I'm going to say stuff that you know, but maybe our audience doesn't. Your typical CMO these days, when they're being, so we talked about how the Wall Street Journal is talking about it's shifting to performance marketing. You have to drive revenue. You can't just do brand anymore. So what does that mean? Well, what it means is that now we have the investors, we have the CFO coming to us on a regular basis, and they're saying, what is your customer acquisition cost? What is the lifetime value of that customer that you acquired? What is the customer acquisition cost by channel, pay-per-click, social media, events, content, etc.? They talk about the rule of 40. They talk about all these amazing things that that I never used to have to report on. As a result of that, I then need to go back to my teams, which include my event marketers, my content marketers, my social media marketers, and I have to physically say, this is how we're being tracked. Do you have the data? Do you have the dashboards? Are you actually able to attribute your impact in the journey so then I can actually make informed decisions and tell them, here's the complete breakdown of my costs, and here consequently as well, because I'm attributing perhaps with UTM codes, I can actually say this is the financial impact that marketing drove to the bottom line. These are conversations I didn't have 5 or 10 years ago. I'm having them now. So Lisa, have you ever been asked to not talk about churn or CAC or LTV or revenue per channel? And have you ever not been asked to justify your budget, etc.? Let me ask you that. Yes, it's a totally leading question, I know, but there you go.
I mean, I think part of it is my progression in my career. So no, I wasn't asked to do that earlier on. But yeah, to your point, I think times have changed, and those are table stakes now that I'm asked to have in pretty much every conversation with the leadership team and the board.
Okay, so if you're listening to this stream right now and you're freaking out because somebody moved my cheese, I have always done branding, and now you're telling me I'm gonna be held accountable despite my kicking and screaming and disagreeing with it, or my fear or my apprehension. Are these skills as a performance marketer that I can acquire? How do I become a performance marketer if I'm historically a brand marketer? If you were sitting across the table from me and we were having a coffee, what top of mind advice would you give me based on your own experience? Because like you said, you weren't always asked to do that, but now you are asked to do that. So what skill sets did you have to develop, and did it scare the hell out of you in the process?
Let's say it is scary. It can be pretty intimidating, and I started off in graphic design, so just gives you some idea. Again, like branding, brand work was my passion and where I started. So some of the steps I took, I read a lot of information just to try to understand things. I took time to interview and speak with different CFOs, but especially whoever I'm working the closest with, and like leave your ego at the door and ask questions, and just get curious and try to understand what are they trying to accomplish, what is going to be helpful for them, what information is going to be helpful for them, because you can boil the ocean with data and numbers and analytics pretty easily, and it gets really overwhelming. So if you can at least start with a handful of things and work backwards from those things and understand what they're trying to accomplish, that I think makes it easier and more manageable.
I so like your point about don't be shy, ask lots of questions. So yes, it's scary. Yes, it's a change. And like you, guys and gals, shapes and sizes of all people out there, no matter how you identify, let me tell you this, there was a point in time when the internet didn't really exist. I predate the internet. There was a time when I had to learn how to use the internet to do marketing. I know it sounds stupid. You've heard about me in history class. I accept that. But that's the point. Your career will constantly be about changing how you adapt. So to Lisa's point, you have to adapt. She adapted. I've adapted. And don't be afraid of that. Don't resist. Resist, you're going to get stampled. You're going to get stampled. Is that a word? You're going to get stomped on and stamped on.
Stampeded.
So stampeded? Yes. We're making words up as we go here. We're going to get stampled. Let's go with that. Oh my gosh. But what I like about this is, and for those, and I know there's so many kicking and screaming, I want to circle back. Just because the change is in place now that you have to be measured and you have to be accountable, that doesn't mean branding goes away. I love the quote from the Wall Street article here. This one quote from Jill Kress. She's the Chief Marketing and Experience Officer at H&R Block. She says, a modern marketer today has to be able to deliver against both brand and performance. So here's an interesting point. You know, Lisa was talking about dark social, and the thing about dark social is it's dark. It's hard to attribute it. It's hard to measure it. So how do I, to me, isn't that just a branding exercise? I'm confused. It's having a conversation with the powers in your organization and an understanding that I understand you want to push me towards performance marketing and you want to measure me and I need to drive revenue. But can we all agree that a percentage of what I do is still about brand? So in my case at Agorapulse, I have an understanding with my CEO that 50% of my spend on my campaigns will be brand centric and 50% of my spend will be bottom line demand driving, impacting the revenue centric. What that means is I have a little more freedom to say, I don't know what happened with the brand spend, but you know, they know more about us, I think. But on the other 50%, I actually have to be accountable. Are you seeing that, Lisa? Are you seeing kind of this? We better understand the importance of brand, but we still need to measure?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point. And I mean, you've worked out a pretty good deal there. I don't think I've ever gotten a 50-50 split, but I do say, like, look, some of the spend I have is not going to be attributable. Can it be 25% or whatever? Come up with an agreement. Again, what do they really need to know? And I think having those conversations up front really helps to create a partnership and get people on your, on your side too, to help you out and back you up when you go into some of those tough conversations. Like, well, what happened to this chunk of money? And like I said too, is, some things, there's leading indicators where you can use some of that to help say, look, we can't directly tie this to revenue, but here's what I can see from it. And that is a leading indicator that it's money well spent and we're doing the right things. And over time, I expect this. And then we track what I would expect to happen over time. And if those things aren't happening, hey, you know what? I was wrong. I don't think this is working. We're going to reallocate that money. We're going to move that money over here. But when you've got a huge part of your program that's working and it's attributable and it's turning into revenue and you're getting the results that you need, it gives you more wiggle room to try and experiment and some other things that aren't as easy to measure.
So let me ask you, I want to ask you a question, maybe it's a somewhat personal question, don't worry, it's not a invasive question, I promise you. The more you were able to speak dollars and cents to the rest of your leadership team, because you were measuring, you could say this is the impact our marketing has had on the bottom line. Did you perceive that your respect grew within the organization? And did you see the more you're able to have that conversation, perhaps as you were being recruited for various jobs, did you find that you were in a better position to be shortlisted for those roles than before you understood the financial aspect of what a marketing organization requires?
Yes, it was absolutely critical in my growth in my career. I would never be in a role like I am today if I couldn't talk about things like ROI, CAC, LTV, conversion rates, pipeline generation, and attribution, and what worked and what didn't work. And that's even part of it, is just even having the confidence to say, this program worked. Here's how I know it worked, and here's why it worked, and this is what the return on investment was. And just having that information gives me the confidence to know I'm doing something right, doing a good job, but then gives other people that confidence too.
And I love that point you just made. Just doing that gives me the confidence. That's the upside of understanding the impact you're having, because now you understand you can measure the impact of what you're doing. Before it was soft signals. Now you've got hard signals. Now you know where to invest more and where to invest less. The biggest thing I'm seeing here when people resist performance marketing, resist this transition from the brand aspect to the data, being accountable for numbers, being accountable for revenue aspect, is that it's just damn scary. But the number one thing I hear, especially in the social media community, is that they don't feel respected. They don't feel like they have the career paths they want. I love that you use the example that you started off as a graphic designer and look at you now. I was laughing. I was looking at an article earlier this morning on the top CMOs, and I stumbled across the CMO, had as a list of all the industry's top, mega names, Netflix, etc. And I saw Microsoft. And I'm like, how does one become the CMO of Microsoft? That is not an insignificant feat. I was looking at the article, and that individual began life as a speechwriter for Bill Gates. You began as a graphic designer. Here you were a multi-time CMO. This fellow began as a speechwriter. Now they're the CMO of Microsoft. It's always about reinventing yourself and adapting. And I'll take an article and we'll wrap things up from the Wall Street Journal here. This is from a recruiter. And the recruiter saying that current demand for performance-focused senior VP level candidates or chief marketing officers is so high that many are interviewing for 4 or more different jobs at once. So when you reinvent yourself, you get the respect of your tribe and your leadership team, exactly as Lisa talked about. You are sought out more for your opinions. You are empowered with more responsibility, and your career opportunities blow up, as the Wall Street article points out. And it's all because it's a transition from being that brand marketer to being that performance-based marketer. The one thing that's constant in life is change. So folks, if you're not doing this now, follow what Lisa's doing. Take your example from the Wall Street Journal here and understand and embrace the numbers. So one thing I'll say specifically on social, the number one channel for marketing, according to HubSpot, according to Gartner Group, it's not pay-per-click, it's not content, it's not events, it's not all those things you would normally associate it with. It's social media. So if you're in the social media game listening to this live stream right now, my friends, you are in the driver's seat. You just need to become a performance marketer. Lisa, if I want to follow up with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
On LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn.
LinkedIn/Lisa Sharapata.
Look at that. That's some good branding going on there, folks, right? And that has got bottom line results when the recruiters find her. That's Lisa. I'm Darryl. Check us out at agorapulse.com, where we help you measure the impact you have on all your social media channels. In the meantime, we'll talk to you soon. Take care, folks. Have an awesome day.